It had the media schedule for the following week, so if you have any questions, let us know. And
thanks, Steve. Good afternoon. Good to see everybody again. It's been a while. So certainly good to be back, and it's good for us as coaches to be able to focus on the 2020 team now. So it's good to be back in the office and into it. And as I said last time, anytime we get together, get started in January, it's a new team, certainly a new season, and a new opportunity on top of that. So it's always good. And as you approach spring football, there's always promise and hope with the new season, a lot of excitement about that. And I think that's something the players and coaches both share. So, it's one of the great things about spring ball, I think. Just touch on a couple things today, talk a little bit about the winter program, certainly player and staff updates, and then just some initial thoughts as we head into spring practice. I think the winter program went well. Our calendar is kind of broken up almost in quarters, if you will. First phase out of the box, 8 weeks of the winter program, and it's really, I think, a really important part of our calendar. Certainly, always have believed in that. I think all you guys have been around our program enough, understand that we really think there's value in what the guys do off the field and how that can translate into on-the-field success. And it doesn't guarantee anything, but it really gives, I think, our players a chance to move forward and improve a little bit, and come be more pleased with the attitude, the commitment, the effort the guys have shown, displayed out there. And that's our older guys doing a good job, not only with their training, but also providing leadership. And then beyond that, I think, it's an opportunity for the younger guys to show a lot of significant growth. If you look at the charts from the testing we do right before spring break, there's an awful lot of red ink on there, which means PRs, and that's what you're hoping to see, certainly with younger guys. Well, I want it, but I think that's something we did witness. And right along with that, I think, teams building chemistry all the time. You're building it or you're taking away from it, and I think, we've witnessed that as well. So, that part's good. And then I think just to add to that, it is a little bit significant, I think, and interesting if you still look at this thing in a little broader perspective. This is our second year, knock on wood, at least it's second year now in a row where we're going in a routine. No disruptions, no virus to contend with, all those kinds of things. So, last year we had an out of season, even though the schedule's a little bit different. They took spring break out because of the late start. And we still get a good training period last winter, one this winter, so that's two stacked up, and may not influence fourth and fifth year guys quite to the extent maybe second and third year guys, if you can appreciate that. So it's part of a player's development. I think that's worth noting. And then just on the downside, one reality of football obviously is injuries, and it's typically the worst thing you deal with, starting with the individual players, the disappointment, not to mention injuries tend to be painful, and there's a lot of rehab and just time they spend alone. So it's part of the reality of what we do. The game is kind of built that way from an orthopedic standpoint, and like every year, we came out of the season with guys who needed some surgeries to repair things that they experienced during the course of the year. And then obviously we've had a couple guys develop some issues over the course of the last 8 weeks, and that's part of what happens when guys train or practice. So that's the one downside. But I guess the positive news is there's nobody really that's looking at least from what I know at this point, won't be pretty much ready to go in June when we get to the next phase. So hopefully we stay on course there. Just a couple updates. So, Monday we had 10 of our players from a year ago out there for the NFL Day, Pro Day, and one returning player came back also and got a chance to work out, just trying to get a little bit more exposure. And the bottom line is just, it's a really good opportunity for our guys to go out there and test in front of the NFL people. All but one team was represented, so there's always good representation. And I think our strength and conditioning coaches do a great job during a player's career. They really focus on doing the drills that the NFL guys want to see, and that's part of it. So they have a good base going into it, certainly, and a chance to perform well. But all in all, it still gets down to what players do. I think the most important thing they do is build a resume through their game film. So that's still the big deal. And then the other point of that is, testing days at testing day, but scouts are through here all season long, looking at guys. Typically they all get through early in the fall, come back once or twice more, and other people from the organization typically come through too. So guys get plenty of exposure, and it's hard to imagine anybody that deserves a chance isn't going to get a chance. And so I tell all of our guys, really what matters is what they do once they get there. That's when the real work begins, and there's a ton of opportunity for them as well. A couple roster updates. We had 2 players decide that they're not going to finish their careers. Most recently, Elijah Yelverton came in before spring break and just said that he's going to put football on the shelf, finish out this semester, and go back home, finish up his degree down in Texas. And then Cody Ince has been through a lot of things medically, as has Eli. He's decided he's not going to take his this year, and so he'll graduate here in May. I think he's got about 8-9 hours to go, so he'll get his degree and move on from there. And whether it's these 2 guys or anybody that leaves our program, we certainly wish them the best moving forward. And they're taking advantage of a new start as well, so wish them the best. For spring ball, just shifting into that, it is the next phase on our calendar, and really gets down to 15 opportunities to work with helmets on. That's we don't get many opportunities during the course of the season or course of the calendar year. So it's an opportunity to go out there and do that. And probably the biggest, toughest part about it is being out there, not seeing some familiar faces. Some of the guys that were working on Monday aren't out there now. But that's college football, that's high school football, and that's part of, I think, what keeps us interesting, just a chance to see who's going to step up and fill those roles. Guys up front with leadership role and what have you, and then obviously there's plenty of opportunity for everybody on the team. Our older guys need to keep improving. They need to be playing their best next year if we're going to have a decent team. And then certainly, we've got a lot of guys right now that haven't played much or at all that have great opportunity in front of them too. So this is a real opportunity for those guys to, start showcasing what they can do. And as I told them, we're not making any decisions this week, certainly not today or this week. And really, it's an ongoing process. And to that point, I guess we put out a depth chart on Monday. And I told our players, really, that means nothing right now and really doesn't mean anything until September. But it's going to be a fluid process. We'll be interested to see who does what and what they do with the opportunities in front of them. As far as position changes, I think this is already out, but Logan Jones has moved over to the offensive side, primarily center guard position, and then Mike Tim is going to move over to the fullback spot. Logan's a young guy who's had some injuries, redshirted, had some injuries, had a really good winter. And then Mike has done a great job on special teams. We're a little bit deep at the middle linebacker position, and that's what he plays. So I feel like he might have a better avenue for playing time at the fullback spot, but we count on him to be a real good special teams, continue to be a great special teams leader. Staff-wise, 2 things of note, obviously. Great to get Abdul back in the program. I think most of you know, or the guys who have been around here know that, just a tremendous player, tremendous person, first class all the way from start to finish. And he's done a great job in his adult life. It's scary how many years pass by a little bit, but he is a young adult now. He's done a great job in his personal life and professional life, and really waited until his daughter went off to college. She was a softball player. He wanted to get her established in a college situation before he ventured into college coaching, and has been up at South Dakota now for several years and done a great job up there. So outstanding to get him back. And he knows the program, obviously, and I think nobody knows better than Abdul or appreciates, the role the coach has in terms of developing a real meaningful relationship with the players. And he had that with the coaches here, and conversely, I know he'll have that with the players that he coaches, as well as other players in the program too. So really great to have him back. And then Brian's going to switch over to the quarterback position. Brian Ferentz will. And to me, it just made perfect sense. I thought he was in the best position to handle that role at this point. And I think the bigger hope is that, it'll help us add to our efficiency and proficiency offensively. And, it's the thinking behind that. But he's embraced that and done a good job as well. So I feel really good about where our staff's at right now, and, eager to get started here in the football aspect. Just wrapping it up, it's a new team, and we're 3 months into this season, basically, as far as getting it started. Again, just really happy with what I've seen thus far. It feels like we have a little more personality than typically this time of year, which is good. I think that's a real credit to our older guys. They've done a good job of really lending themselves to the younger guys. So, appreciate that certainly. And then, again, just a real opportunity for the guys we don't know as much about. We got to peek at back in December to see them continue to ascend, build resumes, all those kinds of things. So excited about that. And bottom line is, like, everybody's competing right now at every position. And, the whole whole idea here is just to improve, and that's incumbent upon everybody on our football team, whether it's our most experienced guy, whoever that may be, and or one of our least experienced guys. But that's really what it's about if we're going to have a good football team in the fall. So it's another step in the process, and we got 15 opportunities, so hopefully we'll maximize each and every one of them. And I'll throw it out for questions.
Kirk, when Ken decided to step down, was it the plan to bring Abdul in and move Brian over, or did you explore any other options for that position?
Yes and no. Yes to Abdul in that he's been on my list for a while. He's a guy, obviously, I've been following and watching. Not the same as Derek Foster, but we knew about Derek before we hired him, and liked the position he was in terms of his professional maturity and expertise. So, Abdul's a guy I've been in mind. Quite frankly, initially that wasn't my first thought because he's been coaching defense and played defense. And maybe the most pleasing thing throughout the process was just when I had a conversation with him was just his not only willingness to consider coaching offense, but really his eagerness, and he was really excited about it and gave me the right answer. I don't know if it was an answer just to give, but I think he was being genuine. He sees it as a chance to grow and improve his vision of the game, and which I think is smart. It's good to have experience on both sides of the football. So he couldn't have written a better answer, but in retrospect, I mean, why would I be surprised? He typically has the right answers, at least has historically. So, that was kind of that. When Ken made that decision, then my thoughts were to shift Brian over. I think it makes sense, and really all that outside of 1999 and then the last couple of years, that's been the way we operated. The guy calling the plays is coaching the quarterback directly. I think that personally is, if he can get that situation, it's better. And Brian's more than capable of doing that job, and he knows our offense better than anybody, quite frankly. So I think it's going to be a good, positive move for us. And again, just really excited to have Abdul join our staff.
How much has Brian benefited from being around Ken for the last 5 years?
Yeah, immensely. I mean, that was a big part of, after the 16th season, I was hoping when Greg, talked about getting out and then retiring, I was hoping Ken would be interested, A, available, and then be interested, because he's got so much history with the program. And, certainly knows our program and certainly has expertise in that area. So for a brand new coordinator to have a guy who not only is a coordinator by trade, but also a guy coordinated in this system, thought that was a real plus, certainly. So, and, I never put numbers on things or targets, but I guess in my mind, I felt like if we could get 3 good years out of Ken, we'd be doing really well, and that'd get us up and running. And unfortunately, we got more than 3. And
was on a podcast with Dolph that Brian even said, I don't really know much about coaching quarterbacks. I need to learn and learn from other coaches. So given the quarterback struggles you had last year, is that a concern to you in terms of?
Not really. I mean, not to reference myself, but I will. It's an easy one. I was 25 when I got hired here. And, it defied logic, it defied analytics or whatever. Probably wasn't a very smart move by Coach Fry, but I think sometimes there are certain things that get overrated, and I think we as coaches tend to make this game harder than it needs to be. And it's really, in this day and age, there's so much information. I was laughing, visiting with a couple of the guys from the NFL the other day. I mean, there's a record number of experts out there right now critiquing what we do, and the game's not that complex. It really isn't. The fundamentals of throwing a football, a lot of fundamentals carry over, but there are things. I'm not pretending there are things that are specific to that position. But, it's also learnable. I certainly didn't play the offensive line. I'm not saying I was a great line coach, but I got by for a while. And, you learn things, you study things, you visit with people that really are experts, and that's how you learn, that's how you grow. And, he'll make mistakes just like I'll make mistakes every day. He'll make them too, and I'm pretty sure he'll try to fix them, and that's the biggest thing that we'll have. Yep.
What do you see Abdul adding to the staff?
Well, I mean, it's everything he had as a player in my mind. I just, not that it always transfers over, but that's kind of, and not to minimize Liddell, but I mean, it's the same thing. When Liddell walked in, I didn't know what to expect because I hadn't seen Liddell in 20 years. And it was very apparent by 5 o'clock that afternoon that, this is not a hard decision at all. Because you hope people grow in 20 years' time, and certainly he had done that. Certainly didn't have, a big family when he was left here. So a lot of things change in life, but his approach to the game was always serious. He was always really focused and team-oriented, and he's been that way as a staff member too. And I think, look at Abdul, his career was prolific as a player in terms of production, but the guys that I consider to be really great players, they do more than make plays. They do more than tackle guys or make yards. Like, they just make your team better. And Abdul was always just such a strong, dominant, in a very quiet way, but a very strong, dominant personality, if that makes sense. It's a contradiction in terms, but there was never any doubt about what he was thinking about out there in the field. His intensity, his focus, his concentration, he just had that when he walked in here. We didn't give it to him. And I've kind of witnessed that over the years talking to him. And to me, the ultimate, when he moved his wife, I don't know how you talk about being a recruiter and a salesman, he got his wife to move from Fort Lauderdale to South Dakota, with all due respect, or Iowa. He got them and his son AJ to go up there. It's a pretty good sale. And they've, she's part of the community. She's teaching at the college up there, and they jumped in and were part of the community, not just there for a transactional stay. So everything about him just speaks. He's a solid stand-up, productive guy, and just he's got a great personality.
If there's one number that kind of jumps out about the passing game, is you want to be high completion percentage, and it's been less than 60 now for several years, I think since Beathard's junior year. How do you teach that or make that improve without just the player completing more passes?
Yeah, there's no one answer to that. It's a real team effort, but and I always give you the same answer typically, and you guys hate it, but it's execution. It really gets down to execution, and we've gone through the phase of going back and looking at tape and studying tape, and I swear over 23 years it doesn't change an awful lot. The execution, certainly play calling's got something to do with it. Certainly how you match a play against, not so much the play you run, but how you match it against what they do. Somebody's got to get open. That's another factor, et cetera. You got to have protection. There are a lot of things that go into it. Quarterback's got to be able to keep his feet set, hopefully, and although some of those plays we saw in the playoffs are just unbelievable, but that's really, you're not going to make a living, at least we're not going to make a living doing that. So it gets down to better execution, but to your point, that is a valid point, to think that we're going to live in the world of success if we're completing 52% of our passes, probably not realistic. It's cutting it close. So we definitely would like to be up over the 60s.
Can you talk about the center position at all? Zielinski, is he out for the spring, hurt?
Yeah, he got injured down, unfortunately, in Florida. So he was doing really well. Really excited about what we see there, and we were hopeful when we recruit him. You're always hopeful with every guy you recruit, but you don't know. So I think we've seen enough of him to know he's a football player, and a good football player, potential to be a good one, but he won't be able to work this spring. So we'll get him back in June. That's the good news, and he's wired in and all of that, but it's not the same as Braxton. So we got to make sure, and we don't have 5 established starters at this point anyway. So it's a matter of letting everybody compete. And Tyler did a really good job. We worked him there in the latter part of the year last year. And I thought that was the best he looked, quite frankly, since he's been here, and he's continued. He's really had a great offseason. Logan's had a really good offseason, and so I think it just helps us, first of all, have enough depth so we can practice, but also increases the competition. Matt Fagan's done a nice job in there, too. So it gives us at least 3 guys, and Jay Brick could always jump in there if he had to.
Did you give any thought to kicking Colby outside to tackle it all?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking about everything. But, and he still could, I think. But I think we also have some guys. When I look at the film, I see things that we need to get better at, but I also see growth, and I think I indicated that last year. I felt like the line, particularly the last 4 weeks of the regular season and then December, took steps, and I think we saw them play at a better. They looked more like a winning Big Ten line to me in the bowl game. Not that we won that game, and that's unfortunate, but we looked like closer to being what we'd hoped to look like. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I'm confident Connor could jump out there. I'm not so sure some of the other guys could move in. So, and that'll be spring ball. We'll fool around, play, and whenever we do our public workout, who knows who's going to be playing where at that point. But hopefully they're all out there and improving.
How much did the depth at the D-line influence the decision for Logan to move forward?
A big part of it, yeah. It's a big part of it. And same thing going back, I hate to, even go back to the last trade because throw a tag on a guy, but Logan was doing perfectly fine at that spot. And KB is, I think he's finally over it, a couple weeks later here, but he may still be mad at me, and that's okay. But it's about doing what's best for the team. And that, part of the reason is that we were afforded that opportunity because we have some guys right now. I think we've got 8, 9, 10 guys that are kind of in the mix for playing time on the defensive line. We were really young a year ago. Zach's gone, but most, everybody's back. And so I think that gave us a little bit of flexibility. KB would not agree with it. If he was standing here right now, he would not agree and might hit me. But it just, it was just one of those things. And, could have been worse. I could have picked somebody else, I guess. So you'd really be mad.
When you look at the
I just talked about Abdul. Just everything he's done since he's been here has been pretty high quality. Like, he's a really focused, mature guy. Had an outstanding out of season. And we only practiced once now, so, first time to really see him. But I was impressed just this morning with just his ability to make a little correction. Like, I saw him, we did something, could be improved a little bit, and coach said something to him about it. Next play, he understood, like, what the coach had told him. That's impressive, and that sounds simple, but it's not always what you see in reality. So, and we've got a lot of road ahead of us, but it's going to be interesting to watch him. And I know this, we could always put him on defense if we had to, and he'd be just fine with, amount of practice. So, right, that's what spring's for, is trying to get everybody in the right seats a little bit. I'm sorry, Scott.
Oh, yeah, so I apologize. When you look at the offensive line, is it kind of this mix of fear and excitement for you? Because you still are pretty inexperienced, but yet you have the makings of some really good young talent that if they grow, then they can become pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say more fear a year ago. Again, we felt really good about, the guy in the middle. Tower, one of the best guys we've had. And felt pretty good about Cody and Cody and Shooter. I thought we had 3 solid guys there, so we knew we had some work to do at the tackle spot. But that kind of blew up with Shooter and Cody. So that it was a tough, challenging year, and really impressed with the way George handled things. He didn't go crazy or anything. He just kept coaching. And again, I think I'm excited about the growth that we saw, especially the last 2 months, November and December. So, to me, I'm encouraged. I think the potential's there. Potential is potential. It really doesn't help you. But I think the guys have worked hard. They got the right attitude. And I'm really, I'm anxious to see everybody this spring. It's fun to watch guys and see how they practice, how they improve and compete. And it'll be different on Saturday. We put pads on. We'll be playing real football instead of just, shells out there. But at least, I think we've got, counting on everybody using the experience they got and then improving, and that's where everybody on the team's really, that's their job, including us coaches.
At the cash position, with Castro, I know it was a debate of him playing there, maybe even at safety. What was the decision-making process and maybe looking at him closer at that position, and what do you expect from Justin in the second year where he's, has some experience playing the field?
Yeah, I mean, he'll do both, and everybody's going to be doing both. I mean, we're it's kind of like the offensive line right now. We got some moving pieces back there, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Looks like Terry's back, Roberts is back practicing. He was able to go today, and I don't know if he's full speed right now, but he's pretty close. But yeah, we're going to see what all these guys do. Hopefully the experience will go. But the cash position, going back to that, the original question, I don't know who's going to end up playing there. We'll see where it all goes,
Kirk, a lot of the spring ball last year was about how young the defensive line was. Zach Van Valkenburg kind of reminds me of Tyler Linderbaum, just how much they keep kind of stable in leadership. How do you go about replacing a guy on the defensive line? I know you've replaced a lot of starters over the past few years, but I think a lot of guys haven't shot good playing time this year. Yeah,
my first answer would be that we have strength in numbers there. But to your point, and it's a really good point, Volk did a great job. Like, he was not only a good player, but he was a tempo setter. He just goes so hard. And again, good illustration. I've said it before. At 19, he was okay. He was a guy who gave AJ rest. Get in there for 8-10 plays a game and let him catch his breath. Then he became a guy we were happy to keep him on the field as much as we could. But you look at John Wagner, who's now a different player than he was a year ago. So that's just kind of how it works. That shifts around a little bit, and John and Noah are our 2 most veteran guys, I would say, up front. And, I know they'll do a good job helping, pick things up and, setting tempo for the younger guys. That's kind of reference, and seen it off the field too. I think our older guys have really, the guys that have played, guys like Wagner and Shannon, they're doing a good job. Go right any position. Kayvon's another guy on the back end. Obviously the linebackers. So we'll see how all it goes. And circling back, Jacobs is probably going to miss some time too. So I don't know how much he'll be able to go, but he'll be in that equation too. And ultimately we'll get down to it. We better off with him in there or this guy or DB. So we'll see where it all goes.
I'm sure you're probably expecting a lot of quarterback questions this spring.
Sure. Don't have any answers, but go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what we're going out there for.
So I was trying to think of a good question, but where, in your vision, where in a perfect world, where would you like to see things at the end of April 23rd with these three guys?
Well, yeah, the obviously two guys have a real distinct advantage knowing what to do. So, just getting up to the line and getting the ball snapped and having us in the right play, that's a heck of a start. So, and it sounds pretty routine and easy, but that for Joe right now, there's a process to that. And like any first-year guy, Tate was he was the backup as a true freshman, so there's an exception to the rule. But usually if a guy redshirts, like that's part of the thing right now, is him processing, reading things, and just, all the ABC stuff. So he's in a little different category as far as the learning process. It'll be really quick or interesting for us to watch how much he can pick up and how fast in 15 days. Whereas, both Alex and Spencer have a little bit, obviously, an edge there. They've played and they've been out there when games start, and they've been there when the games end. So, and I think just, we're going to let them both play. And I think the good news is that we feel they're both capable of really playing good football for us. And our goal is to try to get them to play a little bit better and everybody around them helping a little bit more. And I think that's the story of our offense right now. I think we've got, and we lost a pretty good running back in Tyler Goodson, but I think we have two guys that are capable of playing good. Now they got to do that. They gave us a nice sneak preview, if you will, in the bowl game, but can you do it over 12 weeks now? And same thing with the line. Can we tighten things up and be not only hold our own, but maybe get an edge on the opponent? Those types of things. That's what we got to do if we're going to have a good offensive football team.
Kirk, would it be accurate to say it's Spencer's job to lose now, or is it not that?
No, I think everybody's competing right now, and on one hand he's got an edge or things he does better than Alex, but I can flip it around saying there's some things Alex does a little bit better too. So. We're going to ride it out and see where it all goes. But, we'll get it figured out, certainly. And the good news is, I think both guys are totally capable.
Look at past, years where maybe you've had a couple quarterbacks maybe take significant leaps where it's like those two guys or three guys were maybe made it still a tough decision, but they're a lot better than they were a year ago.
Yeah, I know it wasn't Spencer's second year. I mean, this is his third year coming up, but it wasn't his best year. And I think, I think he's got room, and I think he feels that he can, and I think there's some things we probably can do from our standpoint, the coaches, to give him a little bit, set him up for more success, if you will. Play to his strengths when he's in there, and Alex, whatever his strengths may be, and if they differ, lean one left or right, depending on who's in there. But I think both guys have an opportunity to be better players this year, and we've won with both of them, so that's kind of exciting. But I also know this, we got to help them more. Like I said, I'd like to gain an edge up front, not just try to break even, but gain an edge. Obviously, we'll be more veteran at receiver than we were last year. I mean, that unless, the typhoid comes through here. So, we'll be more veteran there. Sam, can count on him to be a good player. And, I think Luke will be a better player, too. So I just hope it's a collective effort.
What do you think of a lot of schools having these NIL collectives?
Yeah, I think that's probably the next train coming down the track. And I have actually taken some time, and I can't tell you that I can follow it all or understand. There's been a lot of morphing in this whole thing, and keeping the next great company and, straight with this company and all that. There's a lot of names being thrown around, a lot of brands, all that stuff. But it looks like this collective thing is going to gain traction, and already has, I think. So it's really interesting. It's a really fluid process, and then you don't know what's lying ahead too. One of the scariest things I read, and it's totally correct, I think, not that I know, but one of the athletic directors who I have a lot of respect for said, we need the federal government's involvement. It's a really scary thought to think about that, but in this case, I think it's probably true. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting. my fear going back 2 months ago is just, I think we'd all agree 20 years ago, college football was probably better than 20 years before that because there's a little bit more parity and, even field competition. I could see this potentially just driving things back to the old days. I remember when I was in 11th or 12th grade, Nebraska beat West Point, beat Army like 77-0 or 77-7. First of all, that's unpatriotic. And then secondly, like nobody benefits from a game like that. But it was one of my first thoughts was, like you could get back to those days where it's just teams get stacked up a little bit. And I'm not sure that's good for the game. But, we have a lot of things that are going on in our game right now that need to be addressed, and I'm not sure who's going to address them or how they're going to be addressed because there's a lot of legal stuff involved too, and that's way over my level of thinking. But it's really complex and very interesting right now.
Would you be worried about the Big Ten going back to what it was before Hayden got here?
What was that? What do you mean? 2 teams?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're getting at. That potentially. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just unofficially in my mind, there's probably. And maybe I'm underestimating it, but there's probably 10, 12 teams, when you're a kid that you identify that probably could ante up year after year after year and not think twice about it. And so, if you want to get to that, and I go back a long time ago where schools would just, they'd recruit a guy just so your team couldn't recruit him, and they'd have him on their 5th team at your place. Those days are gone. And I think there's a potential for that. I don't think it's healthy for anybody, but other than those 12 teams. But we already know they got the biggest war chest, so it's not like a mystery. But anyway, these are interesting times.
Along the lines of going back to quarterbacks, it's unusual, I guess, here as most of the time the quarterback who kind of starts, kind of finishes. Maybe Jake was a different animal there, but what did you kind of just come to a decision as far as maybe in the bowl prep or post bowl prep because in today's world where you have immediate eligibility places, somebody like Alex may decide to shop around. How were you able to convince him? Was it maybe did you say it's going to be an open competition? Or
I don't know. I didn't have a conversation with him on that specific line, but I think most of our guys understand, it's open competition at all positions. Obviously, quarterback's the most prominent, visible position, but I think he feels confidence in himself and he wants to compete. And I think he's willing to see where it happens. That doesn't mean he won't transfer at some point in his career. I hope he doesn't. I go back historically. We've had a couple guys leave here that have had great success. Cody, I just got an email from Cody Suckle today, actually. And, Jake Rudock had a great transition. So, if that happens, it happens. I hope it doesn't because he's a great guy to have on our football team. And I don't know that he won't be our starter. We'll just we'll let it all play out and let them compete. But you'd be crazy not to understand that, in this day and age, anybody could leave your team at any time for any reason. It might be an NIL deal to that point. One of our guys that you think's happy, and, all of a sudden somebody offers him a better deal. So I'm not sure where all that stuff's going, but I think, those guys are great friends and they're great teammates with each other.
Kirk, to borrow from Norm, a couple of months ago, you had some guys who were riding yellow school buses a few months ago, and they're in your program now. What have you seen from Xavier, Hall, those guys so far? Yeah,
so far so good. And they've gone through the winter program. They start out basically in the shallow end or even the kiddie pool a little bit, and just they're kind of learning the fundamentals and whatever, but they don't seem overwhelmed. And part of that is the academic report too. I'm always curious about that because all of us went to college, right? That first semester in college can be a little tricky and interesting, but they've handled it really adeptly and, seem to be comfortable and seem to be, on a good track right now. That's one more reason it's good to get on the field and see how they start to fit in with everything and how they compete. And even Drew Stevens, who's not offense or defense, but, got an open spot there. So he'll be allowed to compete, and we'll see what he can do as well. But really happy about all those guys. Yep.
Looking at Logan and his transition to offensive line, what maybe transitive properties are you looking for from defensive line to interior offensive line? And Linderbaum's an obvious example. What other maybe defense to offensive success stories can you think of?
It's kind of funny. Picture that comes in my mind is like when we do our high school camps out there, and they have shoulder pads and helmets on. So we do a lot of, run blocking and pass blocking. And typically if the offensive guy has to run block the guy across from him, the defensive guys always end up run blocking better than the offensive guys. I can't explain why, but they come flying out of their stances and just drill the offensive guy, and they run them back usually. So really it's as simple as, you tell a guy, hey, listen, when you're playing defense, you were a people mover in the run game. If they were trying to run the ball, you're trying to be a people mover. You're trying to engage that offensive guy and knock him back. Well, it's really the same thing when you're playing defense, and then, when you're pass rushing, you're trying to, run through a guy and then get in his body and then go. Well, so then you flip it over. In the passing running game, you want to separate on defense and get to the football. Well, that's what passing is separating from the defensive guy, keeping him out. So there's a lot of transferable skills. It's just like you're flipping the switch on what to do. Still gets down to having leverage and then understanding how to body position, and then you got to learn the offense too, and that's another separate degree. But one practice, I think I saw the ball on the ground once with him, which is, I'm not saying it's a record, but that's pretty impressive. Usually it's going to be on the ground like 5 times, especially if you got a new quarterback in there. It was him and Joe. So, that's a disaster waiting to happen. I didn't see that today, so we'll probably have 15 of them tomorrow. But, it's easy to snap. I'm talking about when there's somebody you got to block, snap and then block. That's a little different equation. So it's a positive start. But, I don't think it's as big a deal as everybody makes it. Although I'll say this, there are some guys that just really struggle with it. If they do, then you're wasting your time, and I've witnessed that before. And then you go right back to defense, or offensive guys always end up they don't go from offense to defense. That doesn't happen. Defensive guys don't want that.
What was the thought process of moving Tim over to fullback?
Just give him an opportunity to play a little bit more. I think we're pretty well set with Jack and Jay. Although they got to play and they got to improve. Go back to the first point, but. You're stacked up in there a little bit where, and we're not, Turner had a lot of injury issues last year, so, and those fullbacks, they take, they get beat up a little bit, so it's good to be able to roll guys through if you have, and he's really excited about it. Mike's just a high-energy guy.
A couple of housekeeping items here. Griffin Little, is he offense or defense?
He's offense, yeah. He's offense. Yeah, and he is still... not to get too deep into it, but I don't know if it's a pandemic or what. Last year's first-year class, really, we had a lot of guys come in with medical issues that kept him away. And, Griffin had a great career in high school at Bettendorf, but had a couple things, and he's still working back from some surgeries that he's had. And just tried to encourage him to think big picture right now, because he won't get much work this spring.
Is Endry's in good standing?
Yep.
So he's
and
back.
I think he's on Dean's list, actually. Yeah, how about that?
And then
when you apply yourself.
Yeah, right. A tight end.
I don't want to say Dean's list either. It's probably HIPAA or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Buckley Amendment. Yeah, okay.
Sure, gotcha on that. Tight end, can you, from your old conference that you competed in, can you say anything about him, or do you have to wait?
Yeah, we never got to play those guys. And I don't know the answer to your question, but we're excited about the player that's committed to us. I don't think he signed anything, so we probably can't say anything, but I think you guys know more than I know. But, yeah, we think it's going to be a really good fit. Yeah.
Kirk, do you anticipate Iowa having a collective? Is that what
I think it's realistic. Yeah, I think it's definitely realistic, and I think there are people interested in it. And I don't know all the moving parts and mechanics of things, but, yeah, I think it's definitely – I imagine pretty much everybody's going to have some form of one at some point. I'm hardly the expert, but, yeah, I think it's coming.
Looking at Cooper DeJean at corner, he was somebody who appeared on the depth chart at the end of last season. What are your thoughts on his development at that position? And I know you said that everybody's going to be rotating, but is he a candidate to get some reps at Cash as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know where he's going to end up playing or what he's going to do. We thought he was a safety. We had depth problems last year due to injury at corner, and, he jumped in there, and he's actually the guy that made the tackle on the big play in the bowl game at the end, fourth quarter, across the field. And could show you the same thing. Bob Sanders doing that and chasing down Jason Avant, I believe it was, in the Michigan game, 03. Unfortunately, that didn't turn out the same way. We forced a field goal in that game. That ended up being the biggest play of the game, in my opinion. So, but that tells you a little bit about how the kid operates. Like, this guy just, he's a football player. And I'm not sure where he'll settle, but he's competitive. He's really, and he should be an outstanding special teams guy.
Jackson Rex Roth ends up on the list after kind of an amazing squad, I guess. Is he going to be a safety, or are you going to move him inside at some point, you think?
Yeah, you get good intel. So he, and we'll see. The answer there is we'll see. He's playing safety right now, and we don't have a lot of depth back there. So he'll get some good work and all that. I'm really pleased with him. He works hard, great attitude. I'm only, the intel part is like, he's probably could be put 10 pounds on in a week if we let him or told him, hey, you're going to move the linebacker, why don't you gain 10 pounds or whatever. So I think he's watching his weight pretty carefully to keep in the range he's keeping, but he's got good growth potential, and we'll see. I think Kyler might have started on the back end, and he at least came in as a safety. I think now he's doing a really good job. So we'll see, and I'm not sure where it's going to go or where he'll end up, but I think, he's off to a really good start in his career here. We certainly know who he is. Yep. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Kirk.
See you this spring.